Thank you so much, PV, for joining us today. Thank you for sharing the recordings sessions which we had earlier the year during the ending phases of lockdown. Right. 2 or 3, I can't remember. It might be 4. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Stephan Meier, artistic director of BCMG, but I am talking to composer Param Vir. Most regularly or most oftenly, I had been in touch, referred to PV in short. We are expecting the release of Hayagriva, piece for ensemble. And PV, I was intending to ask you first, who's Hayagriva?
I've never met him, but it's an incarnation of a Hindu god. And it's interesting how the piece came about, because I was exiting the London Underground and I saw a gigantic poster about a figure made of bronze with a human body and the head of a horse. And I've never seen that before. And so I started to stare at it, and then there was a crowd of people suddenly staring at it as well, wondering why I'm staring at this picture. And then I mentioned it to a friend of mine, and he said, this is actually an archetype of an Indian god, in fact, an incarnation of Vishnu, and he's supposed to be the protector of knowledge. So that is what his role is in the cosmic scheme of things. He protects knowledge. So, and he showed me some traditional images of it. So I decided to find out about this poster, and it was from an art fair, which was advertising the work of the sculptress Beth Carter. So I went to see the thing, the exhibition in Brighton. I think it was in Brighton, and then I just bought the sculpture and brought it back to my house a few months later. It's in bronze and it sits on my composing desk. And then I investigated this particular archetype, which is what it is. What does it mean to protect knowledge? And that's how the piece began to grow out of that poster image originally.
So the incarnation of the protector, no, of Vishnu, to protect knowledge, intruded into your life, and basically made you write the piece, or gave you the idea of writing that piece.
And hopefully made me more knowledgeable. Since I have all my orchestral templates on the table, maybe I get a feeling that I'm being protected by this sculptor sitting on the desk and surveying everything before it. And people always, when they come into my studio, they go straight to this sculpture and ask me about it and who made it and so on.
It's tempting to jump ahead and think about how this relates to the music, and because the music is not cerebral at all. I wouldn't describe it as such, but before recording, you were adamant that we needed to put colors to it, to work with colors. So now what's about these colors, and what made you ask me to not overlook the necessity of some colors in the recording, in the audiovisual recording?
Right. Well, I've always thought about color in relation to compositions. I suppose I feel visually the presence of color in music, and I decided to separate the piece out into 3 segments. Mainly the first segment being highly energized, and that is the color red, because that's a very earth color and has a lot of physical energy. And I would imagine that would be a fast tempo in the music, or a medium fast tempo. And then the last section, which I called a panel, is blue, which is very meditative and calm. And they are connected by the color green, which is a kind of a bridge passage between the two sections, between the fast and the slow sections. And this bridge passage is just harp and celesta. And it's very gentle, and you immediately know you're in a new space, as it were. So I delineated these three spaces, and then each of these spaces I separated out rhythmically and in terms of harmonic fields. So they are very distinctive harmonic fields, and they have very distinctive characteristics and very distinctive way of moving forward in musical time.
Now, about this synesthetic thing, there has been written a lot, reflected a lot, and actually not only since, certainly not only since the past century or so. Would you think there's like something Eastern Western in this? Like what colors are contributed to which things colors are?
Well, I think I don't think of color in terms of Eastern traditions or Western traditions, because colors are omnipresent. You know, they are present in our lives wherever we live, whichever culture or whichever country we live in. And these are primary colors, and our bodies have ways of synthesizing the experience of this color in our consciousness. So I was simply looking at the properties of this color. I mean, they actually have vibrations. You know, the color red has a certain kind of vibration on the spectrum of light, and that affects us in very remarkable ways. It is a very energized color, and if you know, if you're aware of the system of chakras, which are phenomenon in our biology, they sit on our spine, and they draw in energies from outside us. These colors are present in our body as well, even though we can't see them unless we are trained to see them.
Thank you so much. So if I ask you about the music, and of course, so this is a clearly Eastern title, but it's Western instruments. So, but I suppose your answer would be similar to what you just shared with me, wouldn't it?
In terms of the music,
in terms of the sounds being rather, in your ears, a universal phenomenon of a universal kind than of a continental kind.
I suppose so, yes. And also the musical language is entirely Western, contemporary Western. I don't tend to use Indian musical structures in most of my music. There are one or two pieces that have some effect from Indian classical music. There are time sequences, or if you like, rhythmic structures in the background, especially in the first section of the piece, which are reminiscent of an Indian thal, but you wouldn't hear this as a piece of Indian music or Indian inspired music as such. And I'm not really interested to do that.
Yeah, so as I can't resist temptation to thread in now, you composed raga fields for Parrot and ensemble for BCMG, and that is clearly an Indian musical traditions inspired piece, isn't it?
Yes, it is probably the most prominent work of mine which did that. It's mainly because I just felt that the field of East-West so-called synthesis music is suffused with very simple-minded musical objects, and it usually involves sticking the surface gestures of one language onto the surface gestures of another language. It's not particularly profound or interesting, and I was not interested in that at all, which is why I stayed away from this. But having seen so many of these fusion experiments in the world, I just said, okay, I better do one myself. If I had to do one, what would it be like? And that resulted in Raga Fields, which is a very contemporary work as well, you know. and it interfaces Indian raga-like material with non-tonal harmonic fields.
So I guess looking at what you previously wrote for BCMG, like the Theatre of Magical Being, and what you are going to compose, that probably will stay the same in a sense. So may I ask you what your upcoming plans are for composing?
There are many works in the offing. At the moment, I'm involved with an opera. I'm in the middle of it, and I can only describe it in a veiled way as a work that explores a very ancient teaching, and it explores that in the context of a contemporary musical theatrical world, which is in a sense performing this work on stage. It's almost like a play within a play. So it is set in the contemporary world and looks back to an ancient world, and a vast array of characters passes through this work. It's definitely based on very strong, very interesting philosophical ideas, which I think are worth placing in the world. So it is very much inspired by a philosophical tradition. There are other works in the offing. I hope that there'll be a work for ballet. I hope that there'll be a song cycle. And I'm looking at my experience as a human being in an international context. You mentioned Theatre of Magical Beings, which was my first commission from the BCMG. And this, in fact, had 4 archetypes from very different traditions. And I brought in different historical traditions, or cultural traditions, religious traditions in the piece, and 4 distinct movements. And I'm very involved with the Syrian revolution, or the Syrian civil war, if you like, and the people very affected by that. So there will be a work written, hopefully by a refugee, that might come on my desk in the coming couple of years.
Thank you so much. It's absolutely fascinating, and yeah, we are very much looking forward and proud of that Hayagriva is a pearl in this thread. Thank you so much, PV.
Thank you.